welcome to Hey Look Listen. My name is Liam Sheehan and I'm joined here by Kevin O'Carroll and Jonathan Morrissey. Lads, fucking yeehaw!
Yeehaw, buddy.
Bro, we're fucking, what are we doing? Rustling up some cattle?
Yeah. Oh, that's why you said yeehaw. That makes sense now. I thought you were just losing your mind.
Yes. Weird
Apropos
intro,
of nothing, cowboy episode. We are doing Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2, I think. We haven't really talked about it. Well, I think it's both. I think we're doing both games.
We'll see how it goes, yeah.
It's two games we've talked about a lot, peppered over the years, but we're going to finally just rip off the Band-Aid and just talk about these goddamn cowboy games. But I apologize. How are ye? What's the story?
Good.
It's actually been ages since we've gathered to talk, because the last episode we actually recorded even before the Mario episode that I did before that. So
I don't like it, Liam. I feel
the Mario episode
I miss both of you. No, I do. That episode I really liked. No,
I hope someone likes it because I did not like making it.
It sounds like you loved it.
I found it very hard. It was like blood from a stone. It just didn't work for me. It just didn't work for me. But I'm happy with it ish.
Yeah. Well, listen, if it's any consolation, you fully seem to have hidden your contempt for the subject matter anyway. So.
No, it's not the subject matter. It's my own human brain and mouth that I had contempt for. I still love Mario just as much, although I would like not to play one for a while.
I'm still a little bit shocked at your first choice, though. It threw me. Your top three threw me.
Yeah, I had a lot of contemplations over how I was going to rank them because I think 64 is still my favorite at the end of the day, but I had to kind of, take nostalgia out of it a little bit and see. I think Galaxy is a fine choice if I do say so myself.
I agree.
And thanks for joining us on Hey Look Listen. Before we go rootin' tootin' across the prairies. It's fun, isn't it? It's fun to talk cowboy stuff, you know. Just...
How many more?
I think that's about it. I think that's all I have. What's another one? No? Yeah, I think we're done.
Sorry,
Crime.
Yeah.
Crime.
Bad game mechanics.
Well, if we're talking about Red Dead Redemption, we can talk about punching suffragettes.
Oh, that viral video, yeah.
Yeah, that's part of it, isn't it? Before we get to that, the rootin' and the tootin', lads, what game are you playing at the moment? I'm going to start with Kev this time.
Yeah, so in advance of the upcoming release of Tears of the Kingdom, I have embarked on a full replay of Breath of the Wild.
Very good.
And, oh, buddy, like we all know this game is good.
Great.
But fuck me, this game is so good.
You haven't played it since 2017, no?
I have never played it on the Switch. I only ever played it on the Wii U. I played it at launch. I played it for like 100 hours in the first week. I picked it up a couple of times since to mess around with it. This is my first sort of comprehensive play of it since basically the launch week. And yeah, it's, a lot of people have said that it's pretty good. And, those people are probably right. It's some good shit.
I did a replay of it as well about a month ago, a bit more for the upcoming Tears of the Kingdom. And it was a joy. It was much less kind of my first play was the wonderment of exploration. This time I was very by the books. I was like, we're getting them shrines. If an NPC's give me a side quest and it's not about a shrine, I'm not doing it. So it was kind of maybe a little bit less magical than I think with a game like that, it's hard to kind of recreate the discovery when you first play it. But I did thoroughly enjoy the replay. And I'm the same as you. Some people have picked apart that game in the last 6 years and just absolutely mastered it and found out every secret, but I hadn't played it since 2017.
Yeah. And I never got all 120 shrines the first time round. So I'm really like digging in to find them this time. But because I'm not refinding them, I am getting that sort of joy of exploration thing all over again. Yeah. I remember last time I played, I was in this place like 10 times. I never knew there was a shrine here. It's just really satisfying to find them. What I will say, one thing that I disliked at the time that I now hate with the passion of 1,000 Fiery Suns is the non-optional motion mechanics thingies for the shrines. Some of those like tilty mazes with the balls and stuff, they can get fucked. Absolutely get fucked.
It's weird. When I was replaying the Mario games, I was like, for like Mario Galaxy, you go back and play a Wii game, I don't know, like I'm not obsessed with motion controls, like who is, but I was happy to do motion controls for an old Wii game. It was like the twee nostalgia. But like a game from 2017, I found the same with Mario Odyssey. I'm like, no, there shouldn't have been motion controls in this. They're probably going to Nintendo love motion controls. It's probably going to be some in Tears of the Kingdom as well.
They're definitely in the new one for sure.
Yeah, like I remembered that you could turn off the motion control aiming, and did that like the moment that the game gave me control of Link. And then I came to that first shrine with the tilty maze with the ball in it. I was like, I remember you can turn these off, right? And spend about 5 minutes like in the menus and on Google and trying to find out. And no, you just have to roll with it, and it doesn't get any better.
Especially because I played the whole thing handheld on my replay this time, like the entire thing. So I had to like every time I came to one of those, I had to take the Joy-Cons off it and prop my Switch up on the table because you can't. It's impossible to do the motion control on handheld. It doesn't.
Why did you play all handheld? Was that like a choice or?
I was rewatching old episodes of The Simpsons while playing it.
That's the best life ever.
I was kind of initiating my final form. Hey, Jonathan, how about you?
Oh, sorry. I thought I was still talking. So I'm actually playing something I thought I'd never play. I'm playing the new Horizon, Forbidden West.
Interesting.
Yes,
I have played that.
Have you played it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay.
I have opinions.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Okay, I'm about maybe 15 hours into it, but our friend who is missing today, he's not missing, he's just not here, I should say, at the podcast. Owen.
Yeah, someone knows where he is. We just
probably. Yeah, I saw him a couple of months ago. Owen, he has notched up about it. He's always like, play this, it's great, it's really, really good. Usually I laugh at him or just don't reply. But I finally said, look, it's on Plus, so I'll give it a go. I'm having a whale of a time. I'm shocked.
Good.
Like, it's funny because I know we're going to talk about certain things about open world stuff today and how it can get, very draining. I haven't hit that yet. But I feel it might because I've heard people say it's like a 60, 70 hour game. But so far, basically everything about it has improved upon Horizon Zero Dawn, which I didn't love. The characters are still a little bit blah, but at least Aloy has a bit more to her now. She's she kind of is a bit more of a personality and a character. So I'm enjoying it a lot, and I get to hang around with Lance Reddick a little bit. Bless him. But I'm playing that right now, and also playing. And this is why, by the way, I won't say it. I was going to say another suggestion I gave for the podcast for an episode today, but I won't because we can leave it
save it. Surprise. Keep it secret. Keep it safe.
But I'm playing James Bond on the Game Boy, which I tried to play it on the Game Boy, which I'm pointing at behind me, which I now realize doesn't work. So
it's the most random thing I've ever heard. What are you talking about?
Yeah, so it's it's really it gets way more random. It came out like the very end of the Game Boy, like 2000, 2001 even. And it's like a James Bond RPG that came out. Yeah, it's bizarre. It's really, really fascinating. It's really, really good. It's like a cross of like maybe Chrono Trigger with some other like.
Can't believe you just mentioned Chrono Trigger. It's so funny.
Yeah, but it's a bizarre experience. Yeah. And it's fantastic. It has like amazing references to James Bond if you're a fan at all. Oh, cool. It's very challenging. It's like it's a Game Boy game, right? So I spend a lot of my time trying to find the next passage, or your every room you're looking for the hidden object that you're trying to find. But it's fun. Like I hadn't played it in 20 odd years, so I've been kind of playing that in between bits of Horizon. So
it's really wholesome.
It's man, I'm having a great time. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I am absolutely going to look that up after we record.
Do it's a really really interesting game. If we did an episode on that, I'd lose my life. It'd make me the happiest man ever if we did.
We could do it, man. We did an episode on. I was about to say we could do an episode on Bond games, but we already did an episode on like the Bond game, GoldenEye. So we could do an episode on all the other ones.
I would argue that this is the Bond game. I think it's better than GoldenEye.
Oh yeah, I meant culturally. Pop culturally.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right there. Yeah. No,
I'm not gonna. I don't have enough info to rank them against each other. As the reason why I said that, I'm playing at the moment Chrono Trigger.
Oh snap!
yeah, it's really random that you bring it up randomly, but I have a little present for myself a game called Chrono Cross, which is the PS1 sequel to Chrono Trigger, which I have never played. Not even a second of it. I remember looking at images of it on the internet when I was younger. It never came out in Ireland. Never came out in Europe in general. But so after getting last year, it got a re-release, a HD re-release. That's apparently not very good. But I was like, it doesn't matter. This is my opportunity to play this game. And I was like, 2023 sometime I'm going to play it. And I was like, now's the time. And then my stupid brain went, Liam, are you going to play Chrono Cross without replaying Chrono Trigger first? So I was like, oh, fuck it, fine. I'll play Chrono Trigger. I haven't played it in over 10 years, and it's one of my favorite games of all time. And I feel like it's one of the few ones that I truly love that I haven't. Have I waxed lyrical about it in this podcast before?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No.
It's interesting. I'm playing it now, and like I said, well over 10 years since I played it last. I dusted off my DS copy of it. I'm playing it on the 2DS, but it's absolutely wonderful. It's just such a it transports me back to like a certain era of games. Like it's right at the end of 2D. It's right at the end, like just before everything changed. And here's like Squaresoft's kind of last ditch effort to use everything they've learned. You know, which I think that's an amazing era of Squaresoft anyway, and RPGs. And it's just this culmination of like 16-bit graphics and everything. And it does. I wonder if someone played it these days. I'm definitely. I'm not. I think if an adult played it now, they'd definitely be able to appreciate it. But I wonder if they would like find it so wonderful, because a lot of things it did that were exciting in 1995 are kind of very normal now. Like no random battles. That was exciting. Kind of New Game Plus. It's not the first game to ever have New Game Plus, but it's the first time I ever heard the term New Game Plus was Chrono Trigger. Multiple endings, stuff like that. Has just reputation as a RPG classic, which I think kind of makes people think it's this big epic, but it's just this lovely breezy game in so many ways. It's sub 20 hours. It has like a really simple Saturday morning cartoon story, really simple but memorable characters, really simple battle system. It's just a very nice vibey game that I think it's aged, but I don't care. Like I kind of like there's some things about about just being in a game from 1995 on the Super Nintendo that I wouldn't change, and it's such a important game to me. When I was a kid, like the soundtrack was so important to me when I was a child that I'd count it as one of like my seminal albums. I used to download MIDI tracks off LimeWire of the Chrono Trigger soundtrack and like amass it slowly. I'm having a great time, and it's like I said, it's really short. It's like 17-18 hours, I think, maybe longer with side quests, but I'm playing it like half an hour chunks, like here and there. So it's great. But I will play Chrono Cross. That's why I'm doing this. I'm finally going to give myself that gift. I'm so excited to like whether or not, like, I'm sure it's flawed. Apparently it's not. Apparently it's a very low effort port. Apparently, but I don't know, a PS1 fucking JRPG from Squaresoft with the pre-rendered drawn backgrounds and I'm just going to be. This is like a little gift for myself,
That's you. You just described yourself. Yeah, that's what you
describe myself.
You love.
Those like PS1 Final Fantasies were like so important to me. Probably the most important games of my childhood. Like that, this very similar game that I just kind of like not played into my 30s. I'm very excited to finally play it, but I don't think I'll get to it now at this point before Zelda. Zelda's the big landmark that I have to.
How come we haven't heard you talk more about Chrono Trigger? Is there a reason why it doesn't kind of come out as
I don't know.
Yeah, day to day kind of.
It's weird because it's absolutely disgusting that it's not readily available. Yeah. I checked on the Switch first. It's not on the SNES collection on it for some reason. I would hope. I don't trust Square Enix in this, but I would hope they have plans for it. I don't think Chrono Trigger would get a big Final Fantasy VII remake, amazing graphics, but I would absolutely love a live rendition of it. Give it that 2.5D graphics and give some voice act. Oh my! If they did what they did with Live Alive, that game I talked about a few episodes back, whatever. If they did that with Chrono Trigger, I would literally sperm all over myself.
Fucking hell. Imagine listening to this podcast, right? Imagine if you're like walking down the street, you're driving to work, and then this lad's just like, sperm all over myself.
I said in a sinister manner, didn't I?
You did, yeah.
Like someone who's only ever read about the phenomenon. I think that's the goodest point as any to move on to our main games today, which are, like I said earlier, I feel like it's kind of a game that binds us, the Red Dead Redemption games, because we've all played them, so we kind of talk about them a lot, but we're finally doing a whole episode on it. And this was Jonathan's idea.
Me? Yeah, it was. Yeah,
I was all like, what will we do the next episode on? And he had two ideas, and we went for the rootin' tootin' cowboy one.
Do you know why? Do you know why it was my idea? Because Rockstar are probably the biggest game developers really in the world. Like they're, the success with GTA and Red Dead And the two of them are brilliant games, which I know we might disagree on in a bit. But like, I feel like they never really we never talk about them in that kind of, when we're talking about, the greatest games of all time or, absolute classics. The first Red Dead never really comes up, which I think is actually unfair. I think I haven't replayed it in quite a while. I actually tried to get it running on the Steam Deck when I first bought it, and I know PS2 games or PS3 games. Sorry, it was just so hard to get emulated. It was such a struggle. I gave up. But I feel like it just doesn't get enough credit. And then Red Dead 2 is weird to me because I can see why people think it could be one of the best games ever made, but I don't agree. Even though I really wish I did, if you know what I mean. So I think there's just a lot to talk about with the two of them.
I think the first one was definitely talked about all the time as one of the best games ever made when it came out.
Yeah.
Was it slowly lost over the years, something like that? I remember thinking like it was at least one of the greatest video game stories ever made. That was kind of always my memory of it. The writing in Red Dead Redemption 1 was some of my favorite writing I'd ever seen in the game.
But I think we actually mentioned, I might be actually repeating something I've said in a previous podcast.
I think that might happen a lot in this episode. So we just got to do it. We just got we've lampshaded it now. That's done. We've mentioned it. We've mentioned it now. We're just
spatterings over the years. We can say that now. How fucked up is that? But I think because it's never been re-released, it's never been remastered, it's been so hard to get. I think that's why it's kind of fallen out of kind of, it's not talked about as much. I really thought before Red Dead 2 would come out, they would do something and remaster and remake it. And of course, Kev, you mentioned recently that they did drop, I think, a remake of it.
There was not a remake, but a remaster of it was in the works up until that recent GTA trilogy remaster came out, when it absolutely fucking tanked. And the Red Dead remaster paid the price there. It got axed, unfortunately.
It's perfect. It's ripe for it. But like, I don't know. Red Dead 1, I think we can actually cover that in just a few minutes. Really, it's really good.
It actually brings up a point. Are any of us an authority to speak on Red Dead Revolver, the actual Red Dead 1?
I have never played it, but I'm fascinated by it. Oh shit.
We failed you, audience.
I was really hoping one of you would have.
I watched a making of video on it a while back, and it was interesting. It was this much more arcadey thing.
Yeah.
Like a lot of colors and bing bang booms. That was a sentence I did. And Rockstar bought it. It was a game that was already being worked on, and they bought it.
It was Capcom.
Jeez, or it was
Capcom, I'm not sure of the details. I think it was a studio, name missing, were working on it with funding from Capcom. So I'm not sure how involved Capcom were in it, but they were at least the money behind it to begin with. And I think that studio then got bought out, and there was a rights dispute for a while, and then it subsequently showed up in the mid 2000s.
Yeah, and
I don't know what year.
In comparison to the Redemption games, it is linear and arcadey shooter type thing, but in terms of aesthetics, when it got into Rockstar's hands, apparently they removed all of the kind of stylistic things and made it much more like realistic. And I guess then did they get it? I have a feeling this is just my own thing. It's not based on anything. Did they just want it like some kind of cowboy IP because they wanted to make their Grand Theft Auto cowboy game? So they were like, we'll do this one first, and they will make the one we really want to make. Because I think it's a no-brainer. I remember when it was announced years and years ago, I was like, that is a no-brainer. Grand Theft Auto, but out in the Old West, That's...
We don't get many cowboy games though.
No, that's why it's so unique. Yeah.
It does suit their kind of their makeup so well. But man, like Red Dead 1, I don't think anyone else will ever try an open world cowboy game now because they've just nailed the atmosphere and the setting so incredibly well. Because I remember when did it come out? 2008, maybe, I think, the first one, around then.
Back at least 6 months ago, we used to begin episodes going like, "I have data, I've Wikipedia it, and now we're just like, start the fucking episode."
I'm gonna say 2010.
I think it's 10 or 11 sounds more right to me than 8.
Okay. Right? I can Google it. Fuck shit. Okay, we'll edit that out. I don't give a fuck about the listeners anymore. That's not true. I care about all of you. I forgot my point. So I'll have to move on. I don't know what I was gonna say.
It came, but I like in talking about its uniqueness. I like remember my mom walking by and seeing it and being fascinated by it because it is that striking thing. It's like a cowboy game. The only one I can think of off the top of my head is the Capcom classic Sunset Riders, which is a side-scrolling shooter on the Super Nintendo. That's a whole different vibe. It's actually in my local barcade, and every time I've been there like 3 times. Every time I go there, there's no one playing it, so I always like go straight over to it. I'm like, so I don't think it's gonna be there much longer because I've never seen anyone else play it. But I love it. It's a classic. It's hard in the barcade to hear it, but if you can hear it when you kill bosses, they say stuff, and it's like, "Bury me with my money." And stuff like that. It's the most charming thing ever. But that's not Red Dead Redemption. I don't know why, why I'm talking about that. But it's the only thing I can think of. And in terms of with the Grand Theft Auto games, it was okay. I'm not poo-pooing 1 and 2 in London and whatever. Mm-hmm. But like just for argument's sake, can I just begin with 3? I remember when 3 came out, it was, it came out just around the same time when I was kind of, developing my, love of films. So with 3 in Vice City and San Andreas, it was so exciting to see the clear cinematic influences, and all these mob films and gangster films that we were all watching around the time, and that's like just really good timing for us. And then suddenly these games were kind of emulating them, very, very like balls faced with in terms of stuff like Vice City, which is Scarface, but that's why it was so cool with Red Dead Redemption. It wasn't my game, Sunset Riders, I just mentioned, just a little kind of, a side-scrolling shooter with a cowboy aesthetic. It felt like, Sergio Leone. Actually, no, it felt a bit more grimdark than that. A little bit kind of like Unforgiven.
That was my point I forgot to make. Was I had watched Unforgiven very recently, just before the first one came out. And because they're similar stories in a way, cowboy, wife,
And I love stories like this. You can do this with like a good samurai story as well, or something doesn't have to be cowboy. But I love the man at the threshold of time changing.
Yeah,
John Marsden is an old school cowboy, but he's at a time when the world's a changing around him and he doesn't quite understand it. That's very similar to Unforgiven, like to put the player in the shoes of like a character that's I can say that about. It's just inherently interesting immediately,
John Marsden is fantastic.
He's one of the best video game protagonists ever. Maybe second only to Arthur Morgan, who I prefer from Red Dead Redemption 2.
You've just said that Arthur Morgan is the greatest video game protagonist of all time.
Well, we're talking. This is the Red Dead Redemption episode, so I got do a bit of hyperbole,
Liam, let's pull on that thread. Let's jump along there. What's your opinion on Arthur Morgan? I would.
Whoa!
Yeah, he's not the greatest. He's not the great. Well, we can pass between two of them. He's not the greatest video game protagonist of all time. No, that's not true. But I think he is one of the most well-rounded, well-written characters I've come across in many years in video gaming. Like
completely agree.
I haven't cried at many video games. I really, really haven't. But that ending for Red Dead 2 of him watching the sunset, if you got that ending,
exactly,
is wonderful.
Yeah, I do think that like his character is probably the strongest part of the game, or the characters in general are where it's at its strongest, and his is sort of the most realized and most well-rounded one. I'm on the record on this podcast of having my issues with that game, and I'm sure I'll get into them further as we go. But before I start using the word dog shit liberally, the writing, the story, and the characterization in that game are rock solid. They're so good.
And it's kind of similar to John Marsden in the sense of thematically, where Arthur Morgan is a soft-spoken kind of. He's a good man, but he's still a criminal, and he's still a kind of an old school cowboy in a world that's kind of changing around him. And I think that's if there's a kind of all-encompassing theme of these games, it's that. It's kind of, a recognizable, brutal violence, versus something new. I love about the first game is that, you're hired by the government to round up your old posse and kill them because you're a bad dude. And they want, but, John Marsden understands the kind of shitheads he's dealing with, but he doesn't understand this new breed of evil that this, this government is, this
which I like, and it's fantastic. It's a lot of depth to it, but I always used to find that really hard to swallow whole because you kill thousands of people in that game.
That's
John Marston could be one of the most evil people in video game history.
Look, we're podcasters, so we get to video game podcasters, so we get to talk about ludo narrative dissonance again. I went to video game college and I learned about ludo narrative
top
dissonance.
marks. You got top marks.
I did my thesis on it. It's the single most complicated video game thing to talk about. Yeah, but I understand.
Just for the listener, Liam has a little like sign on the wall where it's like X days since he's last mentioned ludo narrative dissonance, and he's just reset it to a 0 while he's wiping down his pants.
I just think there's times when that's okay, and I just think if there's too much of a gap between that, we're like, because there's a few times in the first game I know where Marston is very much kind of like he'll spare someone's life or won't kill them, but I don't know if it was the last time you guys played it, but you kill a lot of people, like a lot of people.
There's something about Grand Theft Auto that triggers my kind of, this is only a game, I'm going to hit this old woman with a crowbar. But there's something about Red Dead Redemption. I think it's the cowboyness of it, and my general lameness, where I just want to sink into the character much more. So I think you're still talking about just the amount of people in general you mow down in the main missions. But when I play Red Dead Redemption, I'm not killing.
You do like
honorable. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm being relatively honorable. I like my character to kill when he needs to, but I don't want my character to punch a suffragette to bring it up for the second time. But what about the actual gameplay? I think, Marcy, that might be the thing that might actually potentially shock you the most if you went back and played Redemption 1. Does it play well anymore?
I probably not. Like I don't know. I've never. Man, it's such a weird relationship to have with a video game, because like you play a video game, you're not watching it. Red Dead 1 had for me a lot of charm when I first played it. And again, I haven't played in so long. I remember it did get repetitive towards the end. The constant amount of shooting, the constant amount of bad guys are coming across.
It's not a great shooter, you see.
It's not, no.
It doesn't want it to be. It's like those old Grand Theft Autos. It locks you.
It's auto-lock on.
It auto-locks on enemies.
Shoot that person, move on to the next one. And the gameplay of the game is it's kind of bare bones Rockstar, isn't it? You get your mission, you get in your horse, you go to the point, cutscene kicks in, you do the mission. That's kind of what it is. So I do think back in 2010, I googled it there a minute ago.
Nice one.
Yeah. I think I might edit this one, so I was right. And both of you were wrong. Both said, I think you said 2001, Liam, you fool.
No, I didn't.
Something like that.
I said the 1800s because it's a cowboy game.
Yeah. But back then, that probably wasn't as done to death a mechanic as it is today. So it probably still was okay because it was a new setting. I do think though the reason why in my heart I have like more space for Red Dead 1 than I do Red Dead 2 was because of how that simplistic kind of gameplay became this incredibly convoluted and just not enjoyable kind of process that Red Dead 2 ended up with. So kind of whatever happened in the middle there and whatever they lost, what they gained, I should say what they added, kind of changed that for me. But I don't know, I like Red Dead, like gameplay, it's fine. It serves the story well. I think that's what the bare minimum. That's what it needs to do.
It's funny you should say that because I've definitely said it before in this podcast. So let's say it again. When I really gelled with Red Dead Redemption 2 is when I kind of realized that what this is a 60-hour long walking sim. Like in essence, kind of in the soul of it, when I kind of accepted the fact that the gameplay of this thing is kind of bare bones. It's going to dots on your map, even if you're doing something exciting like burning fields or the game has you do a bunch of eclectic shit in the missions. If you actually step back from it, what are you doing? It's walking to yellow circles on your map every time and then doing some shooting, and the shooting is very like you click to enemies and it's crunchy and it feels good, but it's not really, there's not much to it. But when I just kind of accepted, I play games that are just narrative games, I play games that are just like what can we do with interactive narratives. And when I kind of looked at Red Dead Redemption 2 as that, that's when I really fell in love with it. And I didn't mind writing through the massive map to mission, like, long space of time. Like sometimes I just thought it was beautiful. I think it's one of those open worlds that's like feels designed. Like it kind of reminds me of something like Breath of the Wild is similar, where you get the feeling that the designers designed it in a way where they're trying to kind of predict how a player might crest this hill.
Yeah.
And if they crest this hill, let's have a vista or have something, have the light. And I think you get a sense from that. So I'm already halfway there. I'm already so into fucking cowboy shit. It's a weird thing to say like that. But I do love the genre. So I'm very okay with just being in a kind of interactive, very story driven cowboy game. So I really enjoyed Red Dead 2. But what I will say, can I ask you, is that, like, games choose, their aesthetics, their vibes, do you have any, would you meet me anyway halfway if I say that what the charm of Red Dead 2 is that it's incredibly realistic? Like, none of the magic of video games, no floating items to pick up, none of that. It wants to be as real worldy as possible. And I'm not saying I agree with it that much, but that's what it's going for. And I think people who really love that world kind of love that aspect of it. But it also means that picking up a can is tedious. Picking up an item is tedious,
Yeah, I'm not going to meet you halfway on that one, buddy. That's the main thing that I absolutely hate about this game.
Yeah.
And like I couldn't finish it. I couldn't finish it, so I tried to watch like a let's play to get the end of the plot, and then seeing the gameplay in the let's play put me off so much that I
such a bitter old man.
I read the final third of Red Dead Redemption 2 on Wikipedia because I had to distance myself from this absolute fucking waste of my time.
It is kind of time wasted. But like I said, I didn't mind some of that. I didn't mind some of it.
I'll meet you halfway, Tim. I'll meet you like not the whole halfway, but like there was one moment in Red Dead where it really got to me. I decided to play the second one almost completely first person.
Okay,
oh, really?
I'm not sure why. I think it was because I was having problems with having to watch so many, like having to see Arthur go through so many kind of cut animations. Skinning something, and it's funny when you're actually picking like cans. Let's say you go into a building and you're like looting for stuff. When you pick up cans, the animation isn't as long in first person. He just kind of grabs it and puts it away. But I remember playing it, and I had to go to work, and I had like you've got like a bit of time before you go on like a quick video game here, and there was 4 items in the cupboard. It did take me like I'd say almost a full minute to pick them all up. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, why are they making that difficult? I don't get how that serves the story. I don't get, like, I get the grittiness of the Wild West. It's tough, all that kind of stuff. You're surviving, but why is it so hard to pick up a tin of beans? Like, why do I have to hold X firstly and just press it once? I don't get it, Liam. So if you can explain that to me, maybe I can.
I can't explain it. I can just kind of hypothesize what they were going for. I do think they wanted it to be as realistic as possible. Yeah, they didn't want any kind of video gaminess. That was just the aesthetic they were going for. Yeah, but for better or for worse.
It's realism at the expense of things like convenience and fun.
Yeah. But then they've got like the dead. I think that's not. Is that the real world? Can you guys do that? I can't.
I can do that when I'm pissing in a urinal.
What, do you want it to slow down?
That's really weird. I have no idea.
just looking around.
Just walking into the Jackson at bar, and Liam is there just spinning in slow motion.
But it's like the camp in Red Dead 2, which I love because I've talked before. Like the characters are the heart of Red Dead Redemption 2, in particular for me. Just this found family of ne'er-do-wells, and you get to kind of go back to the camp and kind of hang out with them and see stories play out. But even then, they just don't let you run around the camp. Yeah, you got to trudge. You got to trudge around it, and it's another kind of something that should like. I found it pleasant to hang out in the camp for a while between missions or whatever and kind of see the stories play out. But they even managed to make that a little bit more tedious than it needed to be.
Yeah, but you think is that realism or is that just
no? That.
It's just poorly made, just like poorly implemented. And then, like weirdly, Rockstar have kind of abandoned the game as well in regards to kind of updating it all. Like online died very very quickly. They didn't really give that any support at all.
Did you play it?
I did, yeah. I played it for played a couple of old HMV buddies for maybe about 2 weeks. Very, very little to do to kind of keep you entertained. So a lot of time you just end like hunting. You did a lot of things you could do in the single player game, but you're doing with friends. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like, there are a lot of mods out for the PC version where you can actually improve a lot of that stuff. So I've been thinking about maybe giving that a go.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't have to. It's
because because all that kind of culminated, and it's a game I finished, but it made me kind of realize very quickly that if I was going to finish this game, I had to kind of just cut a path through it.
Yeah.
And not do side, and I didn't do many, if any, side missions in that game. I was just like, because the game was long enough,
And that's actually my second big gripe with the game is that like I'm the type of person that the way my brain is wired that and it's why these sorts of games exist. But when the game starts popping little markers down on my map, I'm gonna go there. I'm playing the video game to play the content that's in the video game that was put there by the people who made the video game. And if your advice to someone is just do the main story, just beeline your way through it. Ignore all this other content. That's by definition, that's bad design. That's a bad game,
And it's not necessarily my advice. I'm just saying it's how I personally could get through the game.
Yeah.
And why I brought it up is because it is a shame, because I know from hanging out on the internet after that there's a lot of really cool content.
Brilliant side missions,
I missed. And even in Red Dead Redemption 1 as well. Some of the things you could find in that game are absolutely insane that I never knew. Do you know Death is in it? There's a guy who's very heavily suggested to be Death. He's in 2 as well. He's in 2 as well, yeah.
That's bizarre.
He's like the strange man or something.
Did you guys actually fully finish Red Dead 1? Because there's 2 endings, and you can go back. You go back later as Jack and find the guy who killed your dad.
Well, to ping pong back, when in 2010, is that what you said?
That's what I said. Yeah.
I don't know. It's so funny. Like 13 years later, is this still impressive? But I remember one of the things I was waxing lyrical about Red Dead 1 when it came out was Rockstar's confidence with its own narrative to have the game completely slow down in its final act.
Yeah.
When the main mission is over and John Marston has killed the people he has to kill, and he's the reason he's doing it is so his government have taken his family. The government have taken his family essentially. So he's back at his family on the farm with his son and his wife, and then you start doing like really early game missions. You start wrangling cows and cattle and stuff like that. You start doing like missions that are like much lower stakes than what you've been doing all through the game, and that's kind of bad design in a way. But I remember always being impressed by the fact that Rockstar kind of favored their story and kind of did that. I thought that was very fresh at the time, and it led to a very good ending. And like you said, there's even more secret ending after that where you play as the son. But then in Red Dead Redemption 2 as well, they take that to the fucking nth degree.
Too much.
There's an epilogue in Red Dead 2 that goes on for about 4 hours.
Yeah.
Which I liked. I ended up I put the game down for a week before I started, and I think that's the right way to do it. Because I built up to an ending, hit that ending, and then looked online and went, "Oh, apparently this fucking thing is 4 hours long. I'll get back to it because I've been building myself up to an ending." And it's
not paced very well.
It's not paced very well. I don't think it's they're expanding on what they did in Red Dead 1, and narratively it's more ambitious and probably better, but I don't think it's as well executed. Even though it has a great musical montage in it at one point when they're building a house.
Oh, it does. That's fantastic. Oh man, no, Red Dead 2 is great. It is. And the podcast there. Roll the credits.
What made you change your mind suddenly? Me going on about building the house? Is it the fact that it does have these moments in it? It has a litany of moments that are so good.
It's a game I have it's really hard for me to put my finger on it, man. Like I put in about 50 hours, and I didn't come away thinking that was one of the best games I've ever played. And I was disappointed by the fact I didn't think that. And I was able to appreciate it the whole way through, but I just never had fun. Like I never was playing it and going, "Oh, I can't wait to do this." But I was like, "Oh, I really want to know what the story is." I really know just does Arthur fall in love with this woman that he's been, he randomly bringing to the cinema and stuff like that. Like narratively was brilliant. Like if it was a show, like we said before, I probably would be hugely invested. But even like another thing that I remember it really irked me was when I was doing the epilogue. I remember thinking I missed so many episodes or so many side missions when I was Arthur, and I'd been googling and finding all these amazing, cool missions you could do, like searching for animals and stuff like that. But once Arthur dies, you lose access to all of them. And like, I get that as like, again, that's them trying to be very realistic and kind of, stick to the story they're telling. But I was very disappointed. I was like, I missed so much content because, and because it's not exactly handed to you either. A lot of the side missions, you really have to go out of your way to find them. You stumble across a lot of them. But I was kind of disappointed about that as well. And like, I don't think it's a game I'll ever replay because of the gameplay mechanics.
I can't imagine myself replaying anytime
No.
soon. I imagine replaying it now, and I think, remember that bit where they get washed up on the island, which was very exciting when it happened because it was after a big story moment with a lot of character deaths. It was like I've said before, I'll compliment Red Dead Redemption 2 for his killing main characters off during gameplay really suddenly to kind of like if I shout out a character's name when I'm sitting on my couch covered in Pringles playing a video game, if I shout out a character's name in shock because they get shot dead in front of me, the game's doing something well. Narratively, it's doing something very well. But yeah, and then you get washed up in this, you and a couple of other people from the gang get washed up on an island, and in hindsight, narratively and gameplay wise, it's a huge waste of time and just padding. It doesn't work, and it pads the game. Now I think now, will I play Red Dead Redemption 2 again? And even doing that kind of thing I said of just cutting a path through it, it's still too long. It's still too long for the story it's telling. And I do like that it tells kind of mini stories. Like the macro story is the slow degradation of the gang. The what are they called? Dutch Vanderlinde, the gang. It's the slow degradation of that, and it's the story of Arthur Morgan. But to tell that story, there's small stories in there. There's a kind of Yojimbo type. When Arsha, better reference, A Fistful of Dollars, where you have to you kind of get in between two feuding families in a place. And I thought, as a little story within the game, I really like that stuff. I do, and it's why I just think it's a great. Like the more we talk about it in this episode and others, like you're kind of convincing me that it's a very good narrative. I think that and do you know what kind of sticks in my craw about that as well? Is that the staff were very much abused making a very good narrative.
Very bad.
it's like The Last of Us Part 2, where I want to praise it because I want to praise, because Last of Us 2 I genuinely love it, but I'm also you want to praise the work that was done because the work was done in shitty circumstances. But every time I see Ellie assemble a gun in detail when I'm upgrading it, I'm like, wow, who had to work till their fingers bled to get that done.
18-hour days.
I feel that in a bigger sense with Red Dead 2. I'm just I did the famous one. I never actually witnessed it in game. I never actually cared to look. But the horse's balls shrink in the cold.
Yeah,
it's the kind of famous kind of token. Here's what Rockstar had their staff do. This is what they were
instead of spending time with their family.
This was the crunch time. But there is a lot of that in Red Dead 2, and the more I talk about it, the more I'm saying I love it as a narrative, and then I'm like, well, that game is so graphically insane and it's so expensive looking, and all I'm saying is I like the writing. So yeah, it could have been a weathered old book.
I mean, a HBO show. We've said it before. Let's probably say it again. That story should be a HBO show. It should be get the guy who did Deadwood, just make it beat for beat how it is in the game. Perfect.
Yeah, literally. It would just.
Please don't ever make me play it again.
But I do think there's a lot of. I think we happen to be a little motley crew with a similar opinion on this. But I think there's a lot of people out there who love. With capital L being in that game. And both of them just being in it, and they would think it's sacrilegious for me to say I just did the main story, and it's not that for them at all. It's not even doing side missions. It's just being in the world. It's just robbing trains and being a cowboy.
The YouTube community around, if you type in Red Dead video into YouTube, astronomical amount of videos. So many YouTubers have based their entire YouTube careers around just spending time in the world, not playing through the actual game, but. Yeah, in fact, actually, there's a lovely little story I love as well. That kind of, because Red Dead, it has those moments. I can't remember what town you come to, but it's when you're playing as Arthur, and there's this very disheveled man walking around town, just going, "Gavin, Gavin, has anyone seen Gavin?" And I was like, "What the fuck? Who is this dude?" But you can't interact with him. He walked around the whole town, and I spent time following him, seeing if he'd bring me somewhere. No. I antagonized him. You can greet, antagonize, whatever. Trying to get something out of him. Nothing. So eventually I killed him, because that's what we do, right?
Is it?
I had to, yeah. In the game anyway. But he had a note on him that basically was from his brother, and it was his brother had written him the note saying they were really worried about him and his mental health, and they really wanted him to come home. And Steph was beside me on the couch, and she was like, "How do you feel? How do you feel after what you've just done?" And I felt like shit, but I googled it. That's the only way you can actually find that out.
I like that.
Yeah,
I really do, because it's like they knew eventually someone would go, "I'm just gonna fucking kill this guy because I'm annoyed," to kind of figure what's going on. But the note, like, it actually went, "Oh," and so they're really good at that, man. Red Dead 2 is full of moments like that, I think, to be fair.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, even between the three of us, how much we've played it, we've probably only scratched the surface with moments like that. Do you know what I mean?
But that's what you're saying. Like, that's kind of the negative. I feel like I've only scratched the surface of it, but I would never have reached the end of that story if I didn't. But maybe I should have stopped and smelled the roses. Maybe, not been so.
Stop and kill the Gavin.
Kill the Gavin. Because I remember 1 as well, which I played more with it's very vibey.
Yeah,
rocking into town and playing poker, and with people like that, And then the whole bit when you're crossing down into Mexico is just an outstanding sequence,
Jose Gonzalez comes on.
Yeah.
Little guitar. Oh, that's fantastic.
And 2 has the moments. Well, I love this very silly part where you go out drinking and it's just this wild night out. Remember that part? And you get your langers and you're partying. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I agree. Just not only is the main narrative amazing, it's full of these small moments, 1 and 2. And I think our problem is that we kind of understand that. But
I wonder what direction I go with 3 now, because I do think there is enough criticism out there of 2, particularly from bigger game journalists, about the gameplay and about how.
Sorry, Marcy, for a second. Before I played 2, I never saw any criticism for it, because 2 was out.
Really?
2 was out for a couple of years before I played it, and I just thought it was just the most universally praised thing. And it's weird. And then when I played it and had a ton of criticism for it, that's when I started seeing it. I just think I was blind to it at first. I thought it was the most universally praised game when it came out. It was all over the Game of the Years and stuff like that.
Man, that happens to me sometimes with some games I really want to play. The new Elder Scrolls, I won't listen to anyone's criticism. I'll fight them. But for Red Dead 2, I queued up for it. Me and my partner queued up at midnight to get it in Ottawa. That's how excited I was about it.
You flew to Ottawa.
Kev, think about it for a second. You look at.
God damn it, Kevin. We gotta do this again.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do a breakout room.
Carry on.
Well, I got the big question.
Ooh.
That all of us have been flirting around, dancing around, kissing around. I don't know what I'm doing. What do we think of the depiction of the Irish in these games? Well, let's not forget the famous Red Dead Redemption 1 character, who is a sickly man covered in head to toe in dirt, and he's a drunk, and his name is Irish.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Fucking shocking.
Because I think all the characters are quite well drawn in these games, right?
Yeah.
But I do think each time they decided to make a character Irish, he's some kind of fucking drunken rapscallion.
Yeah, the guy in 2 was more like Sean. That was it. Yeah,
he's more like a real character.
Yeah,
but they also made the Irish guy of the group the fucking kind of
the drunk rabble-rouser, basically.
Rabble-rouser. He's very charming, but he's unpredictable and hot temper. Yeah, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I suppose the thing to remember is that the Irish, and particularly the Irish in America, and particularly the Irish in America in the late 1800s, had the reputation for a reason.
Yeah.
Hey,
we didn't pick it up off the ground.
Yeah,
quote Bono: "These are the hands that built America, Kev."
Yeah, they just had the shakes at the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So isn't the term "luck of the Irish"? It comes from America. It doesn't come from Ireland, I think.
Yeah, no, it's not an Irish thing at all. There's a lot of Irish stereotypes or Irish isms that are American Irish things. That the world doesn't really draw a distinction between the two, but we definitely do.
Exactly. Well, there was an animated. Oh, I'm way off the beaten track now. There was an animated movie there last year with Simon Pegg playing a cat, and it was called Luck, and he's in this factory, and there's leprechauns. And it's supposed to be it's a twee idea about we make luck here.
Okay.
And he does a Scottish accent, and he says like, "Oh, where I'm from in Scotland." It's like, I don't think the creators bothered to look up the difference and find out where did these stereotypes come from. Oh yeah, one of them.
Get your racism right.
One of them. Yeah.
Yeah. I hate inaccurate racism. Really.
Yeah, come on, pick a lane.
Yeah. But fucking cheesy. Again, way off topic here. SNL, not even that long ago. Remember when they were doing like an Oscars special, and they had two people play. Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, and they were just like, oh, ta. And they went back to like the studio and was like, I have no idea what those guys were saying, and they're not even drunk yet, and they had to come out and apologize. Like Colin Farrell was like recovering alcoholic. Do you know what I mean? I don't know, man. But back to the games.
Yeah, and then we kick up our feet to play some good interactive video games, and we have drunks called Irish on our screen.
Not that interactive.
I don't.
Yeah.
So am I just is all smoke no fire? Am I just trying to make drama where there's no drama? You don't care about the Irish characters?
No, I mean it's lazy enough, but as I said, it's not entirely inaccurate. Those sort of first and second generation Irish immigrants who kind of went over at that time, particularly if you're looking at the back half of the 1800s. Now, some of our listeners might not know, but Ireland was not a great place in the mid 1840s.
Right up until 1979.
Yeah, it's actually still not that great of a place now, but we have potatoes still, so that was the big thing that was missing in the 1840s. So there was mass amounts of Irish immigration to the States, people going because they were absolutely desperate and got over there and weren't exactly welcomed warmly. So a lot of them took to the drink. And, so there is like a historical precedent for the stereotype. At the same time, it would have been good to have like one Irish character who was just sober once.
But here's the other big question then. Is there a great Irish video game character?
I don't know if he's a great character, but in the latest Ace Attorney game,
there's no way they nailed.
They did an Irish character, person. Right? They did an Irish, and he's a villain. That's fine.
Excellent.
I'm absolutely okay with that.
Yeah,
I'm absolutely okay with that.
We can be dickheads.
That game's English localization is so good. When they did it, he's Irish. He's like, it's no voice actor, it's only writing. It was perfect.
Wow.
It was. He calls someone a queer fiend. Queer fiend, and I was like, what?
No, he does not.
It fucking does. It was amazing. Wow. His name was Magnus McGilded.
Okay, so they didn't quite nail it.
No. yeah. He was
Icelandic.
I don't think Icelandic? I have a theory. I'm not sure, but when the Japanese wrote him, they didn't, because this is set in London. I think he was just supposed to be another Londoner. But he looks a bit leprechaunish. So when the localization team got him, they were like, "Fuck it, we'll make this our Irish character." But I was happy with the translation. But is there an Irish video game character other than that?
Father Gascoigne in Bloodborne.
Perfect. What's he say again?
Beasts all over the shop.
Yes.
That's class.
We're not very well represented, I don't think. I'm not saying we need to be. This is not the kind of inclusion I'm like, fighting for in this modern world. But I think that's about all we got, isn't it?
Isn't your one in God, I'm drawing a blank on the name and the franchise.
Tekken.
Yep.
Nina Williams.
Yes.
Nina and Anna Williams are Irish.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
And I actually like that because there's nothing Irish about them. It's just a little backstory. I've always wanted an Irish Street Fighter character because that's the whole thing. Street Fighter, they're world warriors, they're from all different countries. And we never got an Irish one. Actually, there's another really funny stereotype in the Punch-Out games. I can't remember his name. It's not coming to me, but it's the Wii one, Punch-Out for the Wii. And I know there's two schools of thought of whether this game is really racist. I think it's really charming. I think it's really charming because they're all really like stereotypical things, stereotypical versions of their countries. Well, I think that's fine if you do it. If like the Japanese guy is really stereotypical as well. But yeah, he's really wiry. He's like a redhead and he's really wiry and scampy and he's like, he looks a bit fucking drunk, That's him. If you go back and play the original Punch-Out, the arcade one, which I've played recently in London for the first time ever, it was cool to finally play it. But if you go back and play that, the Italian guy in it is called Pizza Pasta.
Oh god.
Okay, so on balance, we're actually doing okay.
Yeah.
Could have been way worse.
Oh, but we went off the beaten track there.
Sorry.
We went
anyone have
for a ramble.
Does anyone have any stray thoughts about the Red Dead Redemption games?
Yeah, I have a question for you guys, actually. The Undead Nightmare. I never played it.
Yeah.
Have you? What's the verdict?
It's a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. Yeah.
It's obviously not technically canon or whatever you want to call it, but it strikes this kind of B-movie tone. It was actually that I have even less memories of that than I do of the original Red Dead Redemption 1. I feel like it's been half my life since I played that. It was DLC, wasn't it? Although I remember it in shops.
I think it's one of these sort of, it was DLC, but also available as a standalone thing. I think it's currently on Game Pass. I've been meaning to check it out.
And was it in that?
It's definitely worth it. As a standalone, it holds up pretty well.
Was it in that version, or was it in the main game where you can find like Sasquatch?
I think it's the main version.
I think that's the main. I remember that, so I think.
I think he's in. I think he's in 2 as well, which is another one of those like just really kind of funny things.
Or 2, you can find mad stuff. You can find the hatch, I believe, from Lost. Yeah,
really.
Most people have shown up on YouTube, I believe. There's a mountain in 2 that is the same as the mountain from Paramount in Indiana Jones. That kind of famous cut from the credits. Yeah. There's so much, man. Like I even saw this crazy video, and like actually one thing we should, I don't think we've said it, but we should really say it. The level of detail in Red Dead 2 sometimes is incredible, and like what they've done is impressive.
As a technical achievement, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, it really is, and it's still one of the best looking games ever made. And it's about 5 years old now. But there was a guy put up his YouTube clip of he's like passing a railway, and there's a few workers are like building a new part of the railway. But there's an NPC who's actually picking up a nail, a very large nail, placing it in where a track is, and then hammering it in. But he stayed there to watch the NPC, and every time he hits the nail, it actually does go in a little bit further, and the track starts to settle in a bit more. And he's like, "Oh my god, it's insane! Like, I can't believe he's doing that. What will he do now?" He gets a nail and does the next bit of the track. And if you wait long enough, he does the entire track, like kind of dusts his hands off, puts his stuff away, and heads off to bed and goes home. Like,
it's insane that there's a visual metaphor for the workers in Crunch who are programming that. Do you know what I mean?
That's awful, actually.
Hey, what did I have you working on? The migrant worker who's hammering in the train tracks. Oh, when's the last time you saw your family? Weeks.
Yeah, no, I don't even know what they look like anymore.
I just have a random kind of question. But has any main character, or any character even, I'm going to go that far, I'm talking both John and Arthur, have had better deaths than both those 2 characters, Scott? 2 of the most memorable video game deaths of all time. And especially for a main character. The main characters don't often die in video games, but I dabble. When John Marsden died in Red Dead Redemption 1, I was shocked.
Yeah.
And he dies...
Didn't see it coming at all.
He dies brutally, and he also kind of, he gets betrayed. The bad guys technically win. I know you can play as the son and get revenge on the guy who does the order, but the bad guys win in that game. Yeah. The goddamn American government. Uncle Sam.
No, I was just saying, his death is absolutely iconic. I'd put it up there with sort of Aerith in Final Fantasy VII. Yeah. But at least John's one kind of happens in gameplay, really. That sort of...
Yeah, you get to try to shoot them.
You get a chance to try and take someone out.
That's cool.
That unwinnable Deadeye thing, where you always feel like, if I could have been a bit better...
A bit quicker.
And you can't, like, the deck is stacked against you, but the fact that the game can evoke that feeling in you is a hell of an achievement.
And you don't feel good when you kill... When you're Jack and you kill the guys who killed John, it doesn't...
That's kind of the theme of the game, isn't it? It's kind of everything. It's cyclical. It's a perpetual cycle of violence that hasn't been qualmed, hasn't been stopped.
And then with 2, I got the ending of him watching the sunset. Did you get a?
Yeah, me too. And I saw the other one, and I'm so glad I didn't get it because it's
that would have hurt me.
It's so bad. Who's that character again? He's like the most hateable character in
Micah.
Micah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely despised. The thing about that game,
really hated him.
I said it's about the kind of characters and it's about that found family, and they did need an absolute shithead in the middle of it, and they did it very well. What a prick! And the fact that you can get a version of the ending of that game where Micah just shoots Arthur Morgan in the face is just so gone. I do think you have to make some pretty shitty decisions to get there, though. When you're riding off with John, you gotta, instead of like saving yourself, you gotta make the decision to go back and get the money.
And it's to do with your honor as well. I think if you've been like very dishonorable through the game, I think that affects it too.
I don't want to speak like a jerk around like that, but who's played 50, 60 hours of that game, kind of seen Arthur Morgan, and I know it's kind of he's a malleable character. It's like role playing. But who go that far and then make the narrative decision to go back for the money? That's the wrong decision. That doesn't make sense for the story that's being told.
You haven't been paying attention if you do.
Yeah. I don't want to. That's basically what I was saying, but I didn't want to say it because it's a bit gatekeepy. I don't want to tell people how to enjoy their cowboy games. I do think, just in talking about them, like I said, I don't know when I'll ever play Red Dead Redemption 2 again. But I think if 1 got some kind of re-release, I'd actually really enjoy playing it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely play that again. But 2... No, and if there is a 3rd one, I'll play it with my food. I'll play the 3rd one for sure.
You gonna fly to Ottawa and queue up?
Well, yeah.
What were you saying in one of our last episodes when you were saying you think whatever Rockstar is doing next is going to have this massive online component? Do you think they're interested in, if Red Dead online component didn't work? Do you think they're going to kind of want to make a 3rd one?
Well, I think that's what I said to you guys. I think Owen roared at me.
I think we ended up having to edit a lot of that out.
Yeah, we did.
It says such hurtful things.
My I don't know what my family had to do with the comment, but I think they actually don't. I don't think they'll do a 3rd one, man.
You don't know.
I don't think GTA 6 is going to come out, and it's going to be their main thing for 10 more years.
Yeah.
And it's going to make $1 billion, and they'll focus on that, and they'll go, I don't give a fuck. They've never done what fans have wanted them to do, so they don't give a shit. I think as well because they dropped Red Dead Online. So, man, think about the premise of Red Dead Online and how incredible that could have been. Most people our age, adore Western movies. Being able to play with your friends and just like robbing banks, it had this amazing potential. And they dropped it so quick. Like I think the servers are gone, aren't they? I don't know if you can even actually technically play it anymore.
So that's my knowledge.
So I don't think they'll make a 3rd one. Or if they do, it'll be very, very long time.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Anyway, they're definitely not working on one currently.
No, definitely not. No,
it's possible down the line, but I think you hit the nail on the head. It's the GTA, and specifically GTA Online, they've realized is like the golden goose. This thing is going to keep shitting out money with like the absolute minimum of effort on their part.
Absolutely.
Like it doesn't make business sense for them to do anything else. Like the only reason they're making a GTA 6 is because they know they can bleed the GTA Online community for all the money they've already spent all over again.
Yeah.
Because you can guarantee you're not going to be able to move your cosmetics or your vehicles from 5 to 6. No. They're going to get all those people to come back again, start from scratch, and spend all that money all over again.
Can I play devil's advocate and just say, like, Naughty Dog? No, Rockstar have such a history of ambitious narrative games. Have they really become this thing you talk about? Surely there's people working there who want to tell a big Grand Theft Auto story.
Oh yeah, surely, absolutely. There's people on the ground there who want to tell a big, vast, expansive story, but they're not the ones making the decisions. They're not the money men.
They're not writing the checks.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like if Rockstar wanted to engage with more narrative design in GTA, then where are the story DLCs for 5?
Yeah,
they were rumored and touted from basically when the game launched, and they haven't materialized, and like won't at this stage, obviously, because they're well into development on 6.
What is GTA 5 is a PS3 game, isn't it? Originally,
yeah.
Isn't that a wild thing to think about? Like, it's
10 years old this year, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, they're one of those companies, man, that before GTA 5 came out, the way I viewed them was like a company that like took risks.
Yeah.
Yes, we're very ambitious, but like 3 revolutionized video gaming. Like it changed the landscape of
absolutely
of how we play games today,
for better and for worse. But it's definitely influential.
The longer we go, the more I'm thinking the latter or worse. You know what I mean? Everything's just a reskin. But now they're not EA levels, excuse me, of scummery. But I'm like, I don't know. Maybe you're actually right, Liam. Maybe being on the fence is a bit safer here. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll surprise me. And GTA 6, yeah, we'll be able to carry everything over. It'll be, won't be as much of a money suck. And then maybe Red Dead 3 will come out, and I'll be wrong. I'll be completely wrong, and I'll eat my hat.
Your cowboy hat.
My cowboy hat, yeah, my hat.
I think if they do, just to fantasize for a second, if they do another Red Dead,
do.
Oh no! I was trying to say something serious.
Okay, we take that from the top.
If they shit another Red Dead, if they do make another Red Dead Redemption game, narratively they'd have to go back again. I think.
Yeah, true.
1 and 2 have brought them to the end of the kind of era of cowboys. No, could they do another one? Kind of a setup. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I get what you mean though, because I feel like
it's kind of modernizing by the end of Red Dead Redemption 1.
True.
Thematically, the through line between the two games, because obviously plot-wise, the through line is just the plot. One leads directly into another.
Yeah.
But thematically, I suppose the through line is the sort of thing that we've been talking about, where it's the violence of the actions of the character contrasted against the violence of progress, of change, of the march of time, and sort of the effect that wreaks as it sort of scrolls across the land, contrasted to the damage that's being done by the Van der Linde gang or by John in the first game. And that kind of reaches its logical conclusion at the end of that first game. As you said, it's not satisfying Jack going back and getting revenge for his father, because it's more violence built on this mountain of violence. Yeah, it doesn't solve anything. It's not meant to. Moving the story forward from there doesn't really do anything, because as you said, you're coming at the end of the cowboy era. Then where do you take that?
West. Yeah.
The old West has been won and is gone. I think doing something going backwards again is maybe the right shout there, and maybe it doesn't need to be as direct a lead in to the events of 2. They could go back further, go to a time when it was like maybe even less built up. What I would absolutely love to see, and it won't happen. Even if they make the game, they won't make it this one. Do something linear. Do a linear story. Don't do an open world game.
Kev's old, the old bandwagon.
Do a linear game with chapters. Have chapters that open up into the sort of open areas that you can sort of explore. Have a chapter in Mexico. Have like a Mexican province that you explore. 5 or 6 side quests littered in there. Couple of main quests. The story moves on. You go somewhere else. Please don't make me play another big open world game.
It will never happen.
I know.
We've been talking about how unlikely it is they'll even make one. They will never make. Rockstar will not make a big fucking grand open world game with markers on your map. You got to write to the letter D to talk to Douglas to get a mission off him.
Yeah, or maybe someone else can just make a cowboy game.
That'd be great.
Make a linear cowboy game, please. Someone.
Well, the 90s Capcom made one called Sunset Riders. I've talked about it already. and in that game, you can walk into taverns and the main character comes out with a hooker on his arm, and after that, your gun shoots wider.
Wait, did you say wider or whiter?
Wider.
I heard that as well.
Like it's more of a spread. So that's a really good game. It's a cool game.
Yeah,
it's different. It's different from Red Dead Redemption, but it's a different flavor of the Old West.
Can I ask you a question? And just just give me a one-word answer here, okay? Liam first, then Kev. Are you in any way excited about GTA 6?
No.
Are you okay? Then
I will say.
Are you intrigued?
I would say not right now. Maybe when I start seeing it. But I've played all the Grand Theft Auto games. I've never finished one. I'm not Mr. Grand Theft. Yeah, never finished one.
Not even like Vice City or San Andreas.
No, never finished the main stories, and I've played them to death, like a 3 in Vice City especially. I'm a fan. I am a fan of each one in their own way. But I'm not Mr. Grand Theft Auto, so I'm not kind of like, unless they start showing it off and it's really cool looking, I'm not going to be kind of jonesing for it, to be honest. Yeah. Red Dead Redemption are my 2 favorite Rockstar games. 1 and 2 are my 2 favorite Rockstar games. Yeah, just more like I love the vibes of the Grand Theft Auto games. I love how each one has a kind of different flavor of crime, almost crime drama. But I like the old interactive cowboy drama a bit more. I think it really is. It might just come down to aesthetics and stories. Why I just prefer them over the Grand Theft Autos. But I'm never going to be in a position where I'm going to shit on Grand Theft Auto, except for the story of 5, which I absolutely hate.
Really? I was going to say I didn't. I thought it was quite fantastic. As in the way
I'm
the
very
story itself,
alone.
because the way it's told is brilliant.
I'm just very alone on this. I just don't like it.
And that's another episode of the Hate It Listen podcast.
Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We finally talked about rootin' tootin' cowboys on the podcast. Next time, pirates, and after that, ninjas. And we'll cover all our bases.
So, Sid Meier's Pirates, Ninja Gaiden. I'm down.
I've never played a Ninja Gaiden game or Sid Meier's Pirates game.
All right.
Just named.
Then you, sir, have homework.
You better put down Chrono Trigger. You've got stuff to do.
No Zelda until you finish your homework.
No, I want to play Zelda. Yeah, that was fun. I was Liam Sheehan. I was joined here by Kevin O'Carroll and Jonathan Marcy. And please join us next time. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.